looking down from the heights that we have built all by ourselves. And there is fear of the unknown, but we cannot lose control when we feel like the world is against us. We're trying to find ourselves without the defining words. We can no longer hold on to what only makes us hurt. We cannot sink into the dark. The vertigo is getting sharp. There's something greater than ourselves that we must reach for.
Before we do start, however, you will see this lovely young lady busy doing some crazy things with her hands. So a massive big thanks to eDeaf. We had a call from the community that one or two people that are deaf wanted to attend our events, and they managed to come on board and to sponsor the event and the interpreter for us. So she's going to be sign languaging the entire time, and we're going to be capturing this on the video and we'll be inserting it onto the video. So this will be one of the few Startup Grind videos that'll have a live interpreter on the video on YouTube, which I think is quite amazing, and also shows our community. Massive applause for us. Thank you. Okay, cool. Over to Natalie. Right, so this young lady swam for the Commonwealth Games in
1998.
A long time, 1998. But she managed to get into the Paralympics in 2004.
Yeah.
In 2008, she swam for both the Paralympics and the official Olympics. She's a handful of about, I think, 15 to 20 people in the entire world that have ever done that. So that's incredible, guys. And in 2012, she swam for the Paralympics again. So, guys, give a massive round of applause for South Africa's swimming champion, Natalie Du Toit. Woo!
Thanks, G.
Thank you so much. Oh, there we go. Take a seat.
Perfect.
There we go.
Sorry, I've left my car keys on the chair. Apologies.
Are you good there?
Yeah, 100%.
Right, okay.
I have a lock feature on my leg, so it should lock in this position.
Okay, there we go.
Right.
Pretty cool, pretty cool. Okay, so let us start off with, normally you start off with where you're born, and so let's go. Where were you born?
Okay, so I was born in Cape Town
Cool.
many years ago. No, in 1984.
We like Cape Town. We love Cape Town.
Absolutely. No, so I grew up there, and I actually moved to Johannesburg in 2008,
Okay.
purely because my coach left and because I guess I was doing a lot of motivational speaking and a lot of the head offices were actually in Johannesburg. So instead of traveling the 4 hours a day and trying to train on the other side of it, I decided to move up to Joburg.
Okay. And tell us, you were swimming from a very young age. I think for the Commonwealth, you were, 14 years old?
Yes. So my first Commonwealth Games I attended was in Kuala Lumpur in 1998. So I'm taking you back many years ago. Well, I won't give my age away too much, but from that perspective, I was one of the youngest on the team.
Wow.
And
this is swimming, so
this
you
is
were
swimming.
100%.
Absolutely. So that was the era of Ian Thorpe. It was the era of Susie O'Neill, who's known as Madam Butterfly. And an interesting story of Madam Butterfly is she was my competition and she swam like 2 lanes from me. And I got to meet her in 2012. She came back as the media for Australia, and I got her signature, and I got a photo with her, and really looked up to her, because whenever we were in Australia, she was the face of TV. She was the face of products. So for me, that was phenomenal. And you look up to people like that in terms of, they're this well-known personality, but at the end of the day, they're just human beings.
Yeah.
And she always went out of her way to speak to people. Even in the call-up room, we all chatted together, and it was a very different era, I think, to later on, in my career.
Yeah. So tell us, at that stage when you did in the Commonwealth, you were perfectly 100% with, you had both your legs, but then you had an accident.
So, absolutely, one of the crazy stories about Commonwealth. So I was one of the youngest girls, one of the youngest in the team. My coach was the head coach, and so there were probably about 15, 16 swimmers that he had to manage. And the first day of competition came up, and I was actually supposed to swim the first event. But because my coach was just warming me up, I actually missed my race. And I said to my coach, I said, I don't know what to say to the media, because the media had rocked up. And we had to apologize in person, we had to apologize in writing to the starters, because in those days, if you missed your race, it's seen as though you're trying to put your competitors off. Nowadays, you miss your race because your manager forgot to scratch you. But we apologized in person, we apologized in writing, and they said that they would only tell me later in the evening if I can swim in the rest of the competition or not. With that, my coach did some interviews, and at the same time, the story hit South Africa. And the story was that I was in the bathroom with the boys, I was busy doing crazy things, and I said to my coach, "What did you say?" And he said, I said it was due to human error, but people picked it up as woman error. So a 14-year-old who thinks that she's making the scene, and everybody says you're going to be this Olympic champion, this Commonwealth champion, and you miss your race, and it becomes one of the biggest scandal stories in South Africa at that time. I got to swim in the rest of the competition, so I'm very badly, and came back to South Africa, and my coach said, "You know what, next stop Olympics, 2 years." And I didn't believe it. I got into the pool, and I really didn't enjoy it that much. And then 2000 came up, and just missed out on qualifying for the Olympics by 0.03. So here I'm 16 years old, so another mistake in about 2 years. And we talk about failures in life, and for me that was probably one of the biggest failures that I think I'd ever gone through. Everyone who gave me an opportunity, everyone who sponsored me to that point, because I don't come from a very wealthy family, but I had let everybody down. And so I had to try and come back through that. And everybody can tell you, but you're going to be the next champion. Just get back in the pool, just keep working at it. And until you believe it in yourself, you will never get there. And then 2001, I had my motorbike accident. Very freak accident. I was on my way from training to school on my little scooter, my little 110cc scooter, which I thought was phenomenal, because down one hill in Cape Town, I used to go like 100 kilometers an hour, like wind completely behind me. But getting to school on it, and the reason why I had a scooter was I was actually anemic. And this was one way to actually become a swimmer again instead of cycling everywhere. So I had this motorbike accident, and I was just very fortunate that a lot of people, my team around me, never said I couldn't. So it was, let's see what you can do. Let's see how you can do this. My parents had brought in a lot of disabled people to come and talk to me, about 5 or 6 of them. And each one of them said to me, "We wish our accidents never happened." And there's one gentleman, very tall gentleman, I never remember his name, but he came and sat at my bedside, and he told me how he's gone on to run the San Francisco marathons and the marathons here in South Africa. And I didn't see any disability. So it was very interesting how he was telling me the story, and I was waiting for the crux to come through. And eventually he took his shoe off, and he was missing the front half of his foot. And he said to me, anything's possible. And I looked at him and I thought, you're missing half a foot, I'm missing half a leg. Like there's no competition. And with that, he said to me the issues that he was having. And I realized a few years later that I actually have the same issues. There's balance, there's how your shoes fit. How for me it's more mechanical, but at the end of the day, it's all in your mind as well. It's how you handle it, how you wake up every morning, you put a leg on, and at the moment I've broken my leg. So, it's trying to figure out how everything works. But it's every day you wake up and you put this leg on and you realize I'm now disabled. And it's how to deal with that. So very importantly, that was the one person, and I chose to think like him. And that was, I think, something really special. My coach and my family all said, just get back in the pool. Let's see what you can do. Go back to school. Get back into everything as quickly as possible so you don't forget.
So you had the accident in 2001.
Yes.
So then 3 years later, you were at the Paralympics.
Yes. So
that's really fast. I mean, that's...
So if I take you back, 2002 was actually Commonwealth Games, and it was the first time disabled was integrated into able-bodied sport. And so I had 2 events that I was going to swim at Commonwealth, and unfortunately it's all about the medals. So they were counting on me getting medals. I had never swum disabled in my life before. I had no idea how to even speak to a disabled person. And I had to learn all of that at an international event. So again, very, very lucky as to the team that was around me, because once you're disabled and you say you want to go to the able-bodied Olympics, the disabled fraternity want nothing to do with you. If you now say, I want to go to the Olympics, but you're also competing disabled, the able-bodied fraternity want nothing to do with you. So you kind of sit in the middle. And if you don't have people fighting for you just to be able to compete, you pretty much will go nowhere.
Incredible.
So yes, so moving on to 2004, and wanted to qualify for the Olympic Games, but missed out on it. So, 2008 was going to be the viable Olympic Games for me. Interestingly, with my accident, I was no longer a butterfly swimmer or individual medley swimmer, so I turned to freestyle. And for all the disabled, I was a sprinter, which I've never been a sprinter in my whole entire life, but I was a sprinter there. And it enabled me to also swim the events that I used to before my accident. In able-bodied, I would never have been able to keep up. And so the 800 meter, 1500 meter freestyle was the best events that I could take part in able-bodied. And yeah, so that's where I started to grow, and I started to try and find my way. Thank goodness, as an individual medley swimmer, you can pretty much swim any stroke.
Okay. Let us talk about business life now.
Yeah.
What do you do now in business life? Now, after all the awards, the medals, the accomplishments, what do you do now? I mean, because you can't go on swimming and things.
So a lot of people ask me, but aren't you a coach? No, I'm a terrible coach. I think I like everybody to succeed. I'm extremely passionate about people succeeding. And a lot of the times my passion comes out as if I'm questioning people. My coach always used to say, don't question me. I know your programs. You're going to do well. And I said, but I'm not questioning you. It's more in terms of I want to know where I am so that I can also improve for myself. So you don't have to keep reminding me what I need to do or what I don't need to do. And from that perspective, I decided that I'd achieved everything in sport, and there's nothing more that I could have done. I had no wishes to do anything further. I'd given back. I had trained the hardest that I ever could in my career. They always say that it's those 20,000 hours that go into sport. I had done that, and it was time to move out. And I wanted to go into business. However, I think society doesn't want me to go into business. So every time I'd say I'm in business, they say, but are you a coach? Are you in sport? No. No, I retired at the business world. So I wanted to make a success. And leaving the sport world, a lot of my mentors said to me, but Natalie, you have the skills. You have the success behind you. You will make anything successful. And it really took me 3 years to find a job. Purely because everyone thought I had opportunities, but nobody actually gave me an opportunity. So the first opportunity that came about, I grabbed it, realized that PR is just not for me. I'm useless at asking for things, especially if you tell me you're busy. Then I feel very bad, and I say, okay, that's fine. I put the phone down, and I do not phone back. But that was how, I guess, you get to know what you like and what you don't like. And everybody thought, but you can do PR because you do interviews. So it's an easy world for you. And yes, I know a lot of journalists, but to ask them for favors and to ask them for interviews was really tough. So
especially journalists.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they move in circles. So I realized that social media was where I wanted to go, and found myself in the social media space. And really that's where passion has taken over. It has taken the space of what swimming was for me. That love for it, to be able to take a business strategy and put it into social, and to plan and to post, and then to see the data and how you can improve on that data. That is what's special about it. And actually, I think throughout my career, my manager created me as a brand, and that's what I enjoy, is building brands of individuals or businesses. And that's sort of where I started out. I took the social media of the company to a digital marketing level, and then I left, and subsequently, joined another company. So pretty much find myself in the communication space now, because PR and communications, you do everything, not just one thing.
Yeah, especially working for a startup.
Yeah, absolutely. I sit on 2 boards. I always say for my sins, but it's sports boards. And one, I think I'm going to be a lawyer after the 4 years, but all the lawyer advice that I ask for. But for me to give back to the sport is really important still. And I didn't want to be a coach, so for me to maybe possibly change something within the Olympic Committee, within the major organizations, that is where my passion lies as well. Also found myself in another space, which is the cryptocurrency space. I know it's spoken about a lot, but not just cryptocurrency, but actually cryptocurrency and giving back to sport. So there's always a sports tie, and I realized, when I retired, that people want to see me in sport. So against my will, I sort of went back into the sports world and joining the sports world again, but really more for the improvement than actually just being part of it.
Okay, so tell us about the cryptocurrency or it's the ICO that you're coming out with, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
So
tell
we're
us
not
about
allowed to
that.
call it an ICO.
Oh, okay, that's changed.
Absolutely. So it's called a token sale.
Okay.
And obviously, for different reasons, but very interesting project. I've joined this world of Steam and Steemit, and it's a phenomenal space in terms of the abilities that it creates. It is a utility token, and at the end of the day, it's tokens that are sold in the crypto world. However, the benefits for sport are, if you own tokens, you input data into a database, and with that database, you are then rewarded more tokens. This will be on a level of club, athlete, province, Olympic committee or committee level.
Okay, so let's break it down to what is a token.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
break
it-
it right down to the basics.
So a token is really called, the platform's called Sports Podium. A token is called a pod. And what will happen in the ICO is we are hoping to sell the equivalent of $15 million. With that, we are able to go live. That's sort of our maximum. That's where we cut it off. It's an ECR20 cryptocurrency. Anybody know anything about cryptocurrency?
Got a few
Okay.
notes, okay.
So our product will only go live in March next year. However,
Okay.
we're doing the sale this year. And in March next year is when everything's going to be developed.
So
So
how
it's
do
a global.
I, as Guillaume de Smet, I don't know anything about cryptocurrencies, how do I get involved?
So
And
do you
how does
own
it
Bitcoin?
benefit me?
Do you own
or-
Bitcoin?
I earn $10 in Bitcoin.
100%. Then you get quite a few pods for that. So obviously, from Bitcoin, you have to exchange into Ethereum, or you can also trade from Bitcoin into our coin. But at the moment, it's specifically for Steam clients, so you get extra. There's a system where you're getting extra value. So if you're a Steam client, you get extra coins. In the ICO, the extra pods will be diminished a little. But in terms of how to get it, it's a Bitcoin. Well, it's actually an Ethereum. It's on the Ethereum chain. And it's going to be a completely different coin.
Okay.
So what will happen is you will have to buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin you have to exchange into pods
Okay.
for now.
On your website.
Yes, when it all happens. At the moment, we don't have a wallet yet, so it's Bitcoin gets through the exchange, and you put into a Steam wallet or whichever wallet you have. It will be on
Is
hold.
Steam the gaming Steam?
No, STEEM. Steam.
Oh, that's Steam, okay. There's
So
another
it-
Steam, it's like a gaming platform. Anyway.
So if anybody who doesn't know, Steemit is an amazing platform. You can actually blog and earn money. However, if
There we go.
you add Steemit, if you want to sign up to Steemit, they first have to okay you before you can become part of the organization, and then you can blog. And you blog about absolutely anything. There
And
is
you
a
just need a
specific
laptop
way.
and internet to access.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you blog, and literally it's on votes, and you upvote people, and the more people that upvote you, the more money you earn. So it's an awesome way as well to blog, and with that money, you can also then channel it into Bitcoin
Okay.
and buy Bitcoin. A lot of people earn a salary from it every month, so that's been quite special to see. And I think the crypto world is very different, and the marketing in the crypto world is very different to marketing on the ground. So it's a very small community, and it's all about the upvotes and people who have, the most power. What do they call them? White horses or dark horses or something like that. So it's quite an interesting world, and it's, for me, extremely passionate, because what it does is it's going to take the corruption out of sport. It'll take people's perceptions. So if I favor someone on the rugby team, it doesn't necessarily mean that that person's going to get the space on the rugby team. It's got algorithms that will actually plot and plan who should be in the teams, etc. So it's a very algorithmic-based platform, and basically how it's going to work. So you'll buy crypto pods. From the pods, you will go to a rugby game, so you can be a parent, you can be anybody, and you can input data. The more data you input, the more tokens.
Like scores.
Scores.
Okay.
There will be a criteria, so it can be possibly your diet. It can be scores of schools, of kids. And the more data you input, the more you'll be rewarded. Very much like a medical aid reward scheme.
Okay.
With that, in a few years, it'll become one of the biggest online advertising platforms for sport. So your Nikes and that will have a platform in which they can advertise, as well as online shopping.
Okay.
So it's got a lot of potential. There's crowdsourcing, obviously, that can come into it. There's a lot that can come into the platform itself. So a very exciting project, because there's nothing in the world giving back to sport. And we've got a lot of sports people that are actually talking to us via specific channels, the Telegrams, the Slacks, and interested in the product in terms of sports people that have earned this money and they have no idea how to save it, basically. So from that perspective, for me, it was nice to see that your Olympic committee, your federations, your clubs will not have a say. However, the development can come through because it's literally algorithms that see people, that choose people. So any person who owns a coin can actually input data and will be rewarded. And in that way, anybody can earn money. It doesn't matter who is in a township. As long as they've got a phone and they know a little bit about Bitcoin, they'll be able to blog or do anything, earn the money, and therefore will be rewarded. With that, you will also be able to buy kits online via crypto token instead of cash. So if it's a costume, if it's a bicycle, whatever it is, that's the idea.
That's incredible. That's amazing. Okay. Talking about, if I'm a sports person, young, I'm wanting to go to the Olympics, how do I get there? Do I have to get sponsorship? Do I have to have people backing me? How does the sponsorship model work in the sports world?
So in terms of sport, each sport is slightly different. Each sport has a little part of the pie, if I can call it that. So your soccer, your rugby, your cricket is really huge in South Africa. In the rest of the world, there are sports like volleyball and baseball that are bigger. And in terms of that, number one, you kind of have to be seen. You have to be number one. That's the only way that I had a route to Olympic level. In our days, they only chose the number one for any event. And if you don't get the experience overseas, you will never be able to keep up with international swimmers. So it's really expensive to travel. I was fortunate enough that my coach coached me for free for a while until I started earning money and could pay for myself. Commonwealth is paid for, Olympics is paid for, but everything else generally you have to pay for yourself. And that's where my accident came in and really made things a lot easier for me. So I was able to do motivational speaking and get the few sponsors. Now, the way that my manager branded me or kind of raised me, if I can call it that, was everything I got, I gave 20% back. So we had funds, we helped out, we did quite a lot, which got me very in trouble in the political space. But in terms of that, I was able to travel, I was able to gain the experience. I got open to open water, which I would have never been open to, because I thought it was a crazy race. Who swims 10 kilometers, 2 hours is pretty insane. So I started doing 5 kilometers at first, and I started winning them. And from that perspective, I went to an international competition in China, and I swam my very first 10 kilometer there down a river. I led all the way, and at 8 kilometers, I had 7 people pass me, which was not the nicest. Came back to South Africa, worked with the coach a bit, and realized that I can't pick up speed at the same rate that everybody else picks up speed, so I have to start sprinting from a lot earlier. And my next race was my trials for Olympics. And bearing in mind, open water is very much like a team. So when we do open water races, we have to earn points, and those points are then allocated onto what we call a FINA system, and you can't go to a trials unless you have FINA points. So you literally have to travel and you have to pay that money. At the same time, I was doing able-bodied swimming, so I had to do the nationals for open water, I had to do nationals for able-bodied, and then I had nationals for disabled, and I had to do the international competitions for disabled, able-bodied in the pool, and open water. So I had 3 calendars running in one. So it was pretty much train, compete, train, compete, train, compete, which was a bit crazy. So, you know, I don't...
What time did you wake up in the morning?
I woke up at 4.
4 o'clock in
Yeah.
the morning.
So in my cycling days, I used to wake up at 3:30 and then cycle to training and train at 5. So 5 till 6,
And then what time
7.
did you go to bed?
We used to, in winter, we had we trained 6 to 8 in the evening. So I used to have to cycle home after that. So pretty much 11, 12, 1
And you're
around
up
there.
at 3, so you had 3-4 hours sleep.
Pretty much. So what I've put into sports,
You guys
I
are
just,
chopping ears, think you got it hard, eh? I'm sorry.
but that's right. You know, a lot of people say that sports like translates straight into business, and you know, I've just taken that and I'm doing exactly
Do you
the same.
still wake up at 3 now? Or?
Yes, no, I do. I find that that's my quiet time, that I can actually come up with
But
content.
you're not going to bed at 11 o'clock, you're going a bit earlier than that. Or?
Generally, I go between 10 and 11.
Okay.
Generally. Sometimes, you know, if you've got strategies, you go to bed later. So it depends on what's happening and going. And obviously, you know, for an ICO, we're kind of staying up many hours during the night. So on those off days, you kind of get as much sleep as possible. Plus, I have 2 dogs at home, which keep me up.
They
Yeah.
can.
So they you know, they take a lot of time. So often I go in restaurants and work. But from that perspective, you know, you ask about Olympic sport. It's about the time. It's about the energy. It's about being willing to work when nobody else wants to. I was that swimmer that I used to train with my brother when I was younger. And he absolutely hated me training with him because the coach would go to the bathroom and he'd come back and he'd say, "How many do you have left?" Everybody said, "No, we've finished," because it was a very tough set. And I would put up my hand and go, "No, we have 3 left, 4 left," whatever it was.
Oh, you're the goody two-shoes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ah!
So he's kind of left for school before I've got out the pool, you know, because I have to finish the set that the coach gave us. So I was one of those people, and I think, again, that translates kind of into the business world. And, you know, in the company that I worked for, it didn't stand me in good stead, as people would say it. You know, a lot of people were like, "But, you know, we want weekends, we want our own time, you can't keep working because then it's bad for us." But that's what I believed in. You know, there's a job to do, and let's go and do it. And let's do it to the best of our ability.
Do you have any questions? Okay, there we go. That one just disappeared. Okay. How many kilometers do you reckon you swam a week during the height of your training?
Sure. Okay. So during the height of my training, we train 20 kilometers a day. So 20 times 6, 110? No, 120. And then we had 1 day off. So about 120 Ks in the swimming pool. So it could take us probably 6 to 8 hours a day to swim.
Jeez.
So the thinking behind it was the race is 10 kilometers, so you race you train double that per session.
Okay.
And then obviously, you know, like on a Saturday, we didn't have 2 sessions, so we would do like a 12 to 15 kilometer session on a Saturday morning.
So you just slept, ate everything, swimming.
But I didn't really eat that much. I was one of the swimmers that didn't eat too much, but you wouldn't say it. But at the end of the day, you know, like breakfast, I couldn't eat breakfast before I went to training. So I would drink something, you know, very much like a sustagen or something like that in the morning. You know, there's baby shakes or one of those, which I found, or chocolate croissants. Those were my favorite breakfasts. But yeah, I think rest, important on your day off. And I think throughout my career, that's where I didn't have the balance, because my parents and everybody put it into my head that I should rest. And so I lost a lot of friends that way. And I'm the type of person that I don't like to question too much. Now I've become very different. But in terms of question, as if someone says to me, you need to rest or whatever, I think it's the best for me, you know. And so, yeah, so I should have had a bit more balance than I had. Because leaving the sports scene, you pretty much leave without money, without friends, without a degree behind your name, and you pretty much end up just you. So if you've built up a nice team around you, it's really nice to have that support from one or two people, and yeah, having a few mentors.
Because you make a bit of money in your heyday, but it all gets spent very quickly because of all your traveling
Yes.
and everything you're doing,
Yeah.
and then you're...
Absolutely.
Okay,
So
okay.
you can only do so much for sponsors
Yeah.
because you're never really here. So you can't have too many sponsors. So you pretty much, I think we worked on almost R1 million of traveling costs a year in terms of traveling for competitions and that. So it's a lot. And to try and pay, everything else while you're not at home. I was very fortunate. I won quite a lot of money at the SABC Awards one year after 2008 Paralympics and Olympics. And I bought a little flat, and that was advice given to me because it was when you leave the sport, you kind of don't have that income anymore. So rather have it so that you know that you have something secure. And yeah, I think from that perspective, I had a few sponsors that were sponsoring me but didn't quite finish sponsoring because I ended in October. So, the fourth term wasn't really there, which was a bit of a challenge for me. But there's one thing that I've learned from the 3 years I didn't have a job was I never want to go back there again. I never want to try and figure out how to pay monthly costs. I'm sure everybody knows how to do that. And you sort of wangle monthly costs around so that you could sort of pay this one this month, that one next month, so that nobody gets on your back. But I think I learned a lot of lessons in those 3 years as well, about myself and about how to handle, me.
You must have met some incredible people, both in sport and in business. Any particular people stand out for you as having an incredible story to tell?
Sure. I think I have met amazing people throughout my life, and a lot of them became mentors out of the blue. I think one person, especially to me, well, there's two people. Number one, my manager. She basically took over the reins just before I went to the Olympic Games, and she traveled and sort of left her family here as well. And without that, I don't think I would have achieved, because through politics and through everything, she had my back, if I can call it that. And through everything, something simple as I leave my leg at the start and I need someone to take it to the finish. In the beginning, they kept arguing, and the security wouldn't let her through because they said there was, someone without a leg can't be swimming down the river or in the sea. But that was important for me to be able to achieve, because knowing that my leg was there I had security. And the second person would be Mr. Labner. Mr. Labner actually paid for me to go to the Olympic Games. So when I qualified, I came back to South Africa, and they said to me, actually, they made my qualification criteria really stringent so that I didn't qualify. So it was top 10 in the world, and I came fourth. And so they said they actually don't have the funds for me. And last minute, manager went out, and she got the money, and Mr. Labner actually paid for me to go to the Olympics.
Wow.
And ever since then, he's been a mentor. He's passed away last year. But his family has been very instrumental in my swimming career as well. Met wonderful people. Being on the Laureus, what did you call it? I'm a friend of Laureus since 2003. So one of the very first Laureus ambassadors. And you get to meet crazy and wonderful top sports people, people in business, and they're a lot older than me. And I still get to meet people along the way. Nelson Mandela, shame, he phoned me when I was in Egypt, so after the Commonwealth Games, and I had no idea who Nelson Mandela is. And now I know I'm not supposed to say that, but I was busy competing in Egypt, and he phoned the swimming pool, and they said to me, someone wants to speak to you. So I said, at the swimming pool? Who would phone me at a swimming pool? Anyway, I missed the phone call. So he phoned back the next day, and he said congratulations for going to the Commonwealth Games and winning the disabled events there. And then one piece of advice he said to me was he had a friend who had gone to the Olympics who was disabled, and he knows that he can do it, so he knows that I can do it. And this was going back to 2002 which is not even a year after my accident. So I think, that conversation also stuck with me. And my coach was Hungarian, and he was saying, he's had an athlete who was disabled, who went off to the Olympic Games and all of that as well. So I had a lot of that. And that's what got me through it. People that believed in me, people that, were behind me and supporting me.
Any other questions from the crowd?
Everyone's
Anybody got
quiet.
questions? Very quiet today. Normally they ask, is my thing on? Is this on? Is it?
Yep.
I just want to make sure, like, you guys are, okay. At the moment you're doing with public relations, but also reputation management.
Yeah.
What are some crazy stories, and is it important to have that, or do you need it, or tell us a bit about that?
So it might be vying a little bit off reputation management, but I guess if I tell you, going through Olympics, going through Paralympics, everybody knows Oscar, and we were always put in the same boat. So it was always, you're disabled, you went to the Olympics, you compete. We actually compete in completely different sports. I wouldn't even know how to run. My brain has forgotten. So in terms of the swimming sector, and I think, in terms of reputation, when everything happened, I used to sit next to people on the plane, and they used to say to me, we can't really look up to role models anymore, because you just train and you go to these Olympics, but then you also have another side to you, which is a really bad side. And I sat quietly, because at the end of the day, I realized, in my career, I've been very transparent, and a lot of people know almost everything about me. And even journalists have said to me, we've tried to dig up some scandal on you, and we can't. And from that perspective, for me, that was important. It was important to be genuine, and a brand was created on me and who I was and who I wanted to be at the end of the day. And I was part of creating that brand. So in terms of the reputation management, has become extremely important, especially in the social side of things. It's to, yes, you can speak out about topics, but be able to stand behind it and say, this is the reason why, this is the reason why. And not have to back down or say bad things about anybody. So reputation has been important. It's also been important for me not to be on the billboards, so that one day, I can just be me at the end of it. So it made making money and earning money a little bit difficult.
Oh, was it a conscious decision that you made?
Yes.
Not to do any sponsored?
Yes. So I did one or two, but it was, number one,
That's
I'm not
really
very pretty.
tough to make money out.
One, I'm not very pretty, so putting me on a billboard is not the best thing. In a swimming costume and a cap or goggles, yes. But I think from that perspective, I wanted to be a person. I didn't just want to be a billboard. And you see a lot of athletes on these billboards, and for a few years, everybody just looks past it and is like, you're just a body. There's nothing to it. And I've experienced that with a lot of the swimmers and a lot of athletes that in the era that I've been with. And then they have to prove they're worth more and more and more in terms of the business or any other side of it. So important, I think, and to me and to my team, was to keep as much real as possible and to be yourself.
Be yourself. I like that. Any questions? Well, what is reputation management?
Yeah. So a sports career is actually quite short. And then the sports persons find that they need to find a whole new... sorry, my eyesight's not so good.
So a sports career is actually quite short, and then a sports persons find they need to find a whole new financial life. Advice for young sports persons starting?
Advice would definitely be start finding what it is that you could be good at. From
an early age.
From an early age, yeah.
Sleeps, everything, swim or whatever sport you're in, but also look at your other hobbies and other interests.
It's very difficult in a sport like swimming because you have to put the hours in.
Yeah.
But if your friends ask you to go out for breakfast, for lunch, go for an hour and then go home and rest. Don't just say no. Because it's important to, when you get older, you will realize that that's the generation that's actually in companies. That's the generation that will help you out at the end of the day. So it's important to keep that balance. Very interestingly enough, a lot of the kids I went to school with have moved up to Joburg, and I didn't really know that. And they're in finances, they're in whatever sector they're in. A lot of them travel overseas, but you never know where you actually find similarities in some of those that you never knew or you never thought you'd ever have similarities with. So number one, make the time. Number two, I think it's sometimes really difficult to study, but plan when you're going to study. Don't just say, I'm not going to study. Plan, and for me, I'm doing a BCom as well at the moment, but it's to plan that when I retired, I was going to do it. Yes, it's like living, working, and study and everything in one, which is a bit hectic, but it can be done. So don't just put something off because you have sport. The third thing, and what I mentioned, is try and find what you possibly be good at, because that takes up a lot of the time when you retire. It's not the fact that you have the skills or you don't have the skills. It's to find that one thing that you can go into. And for me, unfortunately, I started doing a genetics, a BSc in genetics and physiology, and then I stopped because of my swimming was a bit hectic, and I lost all the contacts that I had in the genetics side of things. And I was more in business, so I decided to go more in business route. So it's not too much of a natural thing. And I fell into being an entrepreneur. You don't really look at yourself like that until people are like, oh, so you're an entrepreneur. You're like, maybe, maybe not. So people try and put you in these boxes. And sometimes it's not about that box, but it's just about you and what you want to do and where you want to go. And when you get opportunities, to grab them. So anyone who's retired, grab every opportunity. And I guess it's very much like any student who's been studying and who doesn't know what job they want to do. They're not sure of what's out there. Just jump into something, and you'll realize, I don't like it, I like it, I don't like it. Actually, here's a different side to it. Here's an opportunity. Someone's giving me an opportunity. Let's go with that. So very much like in the sporting world, you kind of know what times you're going to swim. Very different in the business world, because you rely on others.
Yeah. Okay, your last question. I was just saying, one more question. Nobody? Okay, last question is, reinventing yourself is a common theme in your journey. What tools do you use to mentally and emotionally adjust to changes and new challenges in your life?
So I was really bad with change. And I'll give you a crazy story, but we went to Italy and in Rome, and we had a World Championships that was taking place in Rome. And we had a freak tsunami that came through the city that we were racing in. And it washed all our cameras and everything, literally broken, Omega time boards broken. And we had to wait an extra week. And it was so difficult for me because I was prepared to race on that day. And my manager has been trying to prepare me to say, Natalie, you need to be open to change. I used to fly 3 days before the time because I used to swell a lot and I used to know that. So everything was planned, down to the T. And one day I just realized that change was important to be able to accept. And, from that perspective, what was the question again? Sorry, I've forgotten.
What tools do you use to
use?
change? Do you manage to adjust to change?
So with all of that, my manager also told me that when everybody does what you're doing, change and reinvent yourself. So I started doing the Robben Island swims, and the minute other people got on board, I left. And it was to move into something else and help somewhere else. And I think that really helped me and motivated me to be different and to grow myself. And, again, advice given. Learn something new every day. Even if it's something that you don't really like, learn it. And you'd be surprised how much of that you actually need going further in life. So change is really important. And it's to force yourself to be able to accept change. It's to accept change, but also be able to put up the wall and say, okay, enough change. Change is now enough, and now I need to go where I need to go. So from that perspective, it's a thinking mechanism, I guess. I always say, here's a stupid comment, but I always say that I can't look as good as models, so I'm going to look completely different. And I'm going to have my own little style. So yes, it's different, but it's me at the end of the day. And sometimes it's not about competing against everybody, but just being that little bit different. And I guess that's what entrepreneurism is about. It's about being that little different. What is it about me or about what we offer that is different to, say, your product?
Very true. So be you, be different. I like that. Yeah. And work hard. And get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. No, don't do that. Okay. Thank you very, very much, Natalie. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate your time. Prizes. Yes, they all are. Okay, so Natalie and her company have very, very graciously offered a 3,500 Rand social media package. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the winner with the business cards, which are coming now, you'll win a social media package to the value of 3,500 Rand, which you can use if you've got your startup to really boost it and get it going. All right, there we go.
Cool.
All right. Tabang. No? Tabang. Oh, there we go. Woo! Congratulations. Come up. Well, Simba's to take some photograph of you. There we go.
Are we standing?
There we go.
We're having a photo. Cool.
Cool. Thank you, Simba.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. And then, what's this for Daniel? And this is for her.
So the idea of the social media is that everybody is different. And be it an individual or be it a company, it will be social media, obviously within, what would you call it, within reason, the social media. So we would obviously chat and from there see where your needs are and see where we can help you with that.
And thank you very much. So here's your little gift for you. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys. Thank you.